Let's say you two had an argument. I'm sure you'd never disagree, but let's say if you both had an argument, and if I was advising Kayla and I was like, just fucking get everything that you need. Don't worry about Simon.
Hello and welcome, Budjiri Gamawara here from the Gadigal lands in Sydney. It's Startup 360 with Simon Thomsen and
Kayla Medica.
Great to have your company today. I do want to start by saying Startup 360 is supported by Vanta, helping startups unlock market opportunities through automated compliance. And thanks, Vanta, for the great chat we had on Wednesday with a bunch of startup founders talking about AI. Really interesting it was, with some really clever people who I don't think AI could replace.
I don't think AI is going to replace people. We were chit-chatting about that on LinkedIn earlier.
We were having a discussion. Who have we got on today's show? I know it's a couple of amazing guests. I'm really excited.
Yeah, so today's guests, we have two women. Yay. Camille Goldstone-Henry, the CEO and co-founder of Zylo Systems.
I love that company. Love what they do.
And our 10X founder today is Jenny Rudd, the founder of Dispute Buddy.
Who's just getting cracked up. And I know there's a big legal tech event here this week. So I think there's a few sort of would-be lawyers, or at least...
Would-be lawyers?
Would-be lawyers. Lawyer-assisted technologies available in Sydney this week. How's your week been? What have you been listening to? And have you been out to eat anywhere good of late?
Yes and yes, and the answer to that is related. So yesterday I went to St. Peter's.
Oh, Josh Nyman's place.
Yes, I knew you'd get really excited as soon as I said that. So yeah,
he is one of not just Australia's best chefs, but one of the world's best chefs. They love him around the world.
Yeah, it was my first time. It was very nice. Went with my best friend. We had a little girls' date.
Yep.
And they were playing Khruangbin, and I've been listening to Khruangbin ever since.
Ah.
So.
And was there any specific dish that stood out for you?
The John Dory was amazing, mainly because it's just, there's so much butter. Just butter is great.
Yeah.
And then we actually had this whole thing around the menu said coral tout.
Coral tout.
and then, so...
That sounds like someone on the Great Barrier Reef trying to get you to go out on an island cruise.
Well, I was like, I've never heard of this fish, so I Googled it. Turns out there actually is a fish called the coral tout, and it's a type of grouper.
Oh, it's called trout?
No. Tout, T-O-U-T.
Yeah.
And then we asked the waiter about it, and he was like, oh, no, it's a typo. It is trout.
Yeah.
And then I was like, oh, I was excited to try something new, but I'll get trout anyway. And then it came out, and we were like, this is not the colour of trout. This is a white fish.
Well, yes, it's a white flesh, but when you see it, it's beautiful. You can get them kind of a red colour, a really burnt red with blue spots on them. They come in all sorts of beautiful colours. It's a delicious fish steamed. If you wrap it in foil and put it in the oven and bake it, it is just the best. And cover it in butter.
Put everything in butter.
And you'll absolutely love it. It is the most wonderful fish. Northern waters often comes off the Indonesian archipelago as well. But yeah, a lovely fish. So beautiful and sweet. Speaking of fish, I had the best dish.
What a segue.
I was down. Well, yeah, we'll come back to Khruangbin in a minute. Although I'm thinking about Khruangbin Sanctuary and lorikeets at the moment. I was down in Melbourne the other week, and I went to a place called Marmello. Ross and Sonny Lusted, who are well-known chefs up here, have opened a wonderful Portuguese-inspired place down there. The dish that I had, which was like seriously orgasmic, it was so good. It's like, imagine a Portuguese tart, pastis de nata, but savoury, made with celeriac, and then you put spanner crab all over the top and a little bit of pickled radish on top. It was absolutely bloody divine. And we also had a whole roasted St Peter's fish as well. So that was really,
delicious.
Really the John Dory. So that was yummy. Some great seafood in that place. Music-wise, I'm still on my Alisa P fix. Yeah, can't stop playing it. Just love it so much.
Once you find something that works, you don't need to fix it.
Totally.
It works.
And what else has been happening? How's the world of marketing? Is anyone marketing anything in a really interesting way that stood out for you?
Oh, that's a good question. There's always interesting things happening in marketing, not always for good reasons. I would say that something that's caught my eye recently and was on the Medica newsletter this week was out-of-home advertising and the Sydney Metro. So if anyone's interested in very
The
niche.
Medica newsletter sounds really interesting. Tell me more, please, Kayla. How can I get a hold of it?
Medica.substack.com. I was about to say net. It's not .net. So this week's issue, I went on the Sydney Metro for the first time.
Yeah. Did you have fun?
It was track work, so it wasn't a great experience. But I was walking through...
They took you on it for track work?
No. Like, I went to go see someone and they live near a metro station. And I was like, I'll get the metro for the first time because I just never have needed to use it. And then I was going through the metro station at Martin Place being like, this place is huge and has like a billboard very rarely, which is odd. Like, you've got a new build, you have this opportunity to do advertising. Many Asian countries have incredible advertising ecosystems within their train networks, and there's just nothing here. And my main argument was that if we had more advertising within the station, that could subsidise tickets. And you have cheaper train tickets.
Well, I think there's some lovely sandstone down at Barangaroo. It's quite epic and monumental, cathedral-like there, and the stations are quite lovely places. You know, maybe you're the marketer. I'm kind of happy with the quiet, the chance to be there, and then a train turns up with no one driving it, and away you go. But let's beg to differ on that one. But I'm glad that you could see the advertising opportunity in every aspect of your life. Maybe you can pitch this idea of more advertising to one of our first guests today. We'll be right back with Camille. Welcome back. You're watching Startup 360, and our first guest today is Camille Goldstone-Henry, a Kamilaroi woman and co-founder of Zylo Systems, which kind of, if you love golf, is a very important business to know. Camille, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
Let's talk about Zylo first and just get the story out. Tell people what you do, because they do have a little bit of trouble wrapping their heads around it, but it is such an amazing story.
It is a little bit of a beyond concept. That's because we're operating in 2035 at Xylo Systems. But a bit of background is I'm a conservation biologist. So essentially what that means is I'm a wildlife scientist. I've spent most of my career out in the Australian bush tracking our most endangered species and trying to figure out how we save them. And the problem I had as a wildlife scientist was, how do I take that information I'm collecting in the field and quickly make decisions from it? And it was very manual. I had to spend a lot of time with pen and paper recording where koalas are in the environment. Then I'd go back to my office and put all of that in a spreadsheet, coordinate with the rest of the scientists that were out in the field and get all of their data. And a year down the road, we'd finally make a decision around how we're going to save the koala. And so I really started Zylo Systems to solve that data problem that we have when we're trying to save our species. And along our journey, we noticed that this was starting to become a business problem as well. We now know that businesses have a huge impact on our environment beyond carbon emissions. They are impacting nature, but businesses also depend on nature for clean water, for fresh air, for agriculture, pollination. And so there's a whole set of new rules now requiring businesses to understand what their impact on biodiversity is, so beyond carbon emissions, but they don't have the skill sets to understand and analyze the data to really transform their operations. So at Zylo Systems, we do all that for them. We aggregate biodiversity data and provide these businesses insights on what they need to do to become what we now call nature positive, and that means actively regenerating our ecosystems.
Which is where you can do it on golf courses, which we'll get to in a minute. But I reckon you're cracking.
I have a fun first question.
Sure.
If you were an animal or a bug, or, you know, some sort of non-human, what would you be?
I absolutely love this question. And I love this because my favorite animal is an animal that I've spent a lot of time studying. It's the bilby. And if you don't know what a bilby is, it's like the Australian Easter bunny.
Yeah.
And they
off to Hagues, everyone. Get one out of chocolate this Christmas.
Easter is coming up.
Easter, that's right. Yes, it's the other part of his life.
Easter's coming up. And
Christmas.
Darrell Lee also do one. And I think it's $1 from every bilby from Darrell Lee goes towards the Save the Bilby Foundation. So they were once found all across Australia, and now they're only found in small parts of Queensland, Northern Territory, and some areas of Western Australia. There's not many of them left. But I love the bilbies because they're what we call ecosystem engineers. So they burrow and they dig for their own shelter and to have their babies, but as they dig, they're actively turning over soil and dispersing pollen and fungi that's needed to create the rest of the healthy ecosystem. So that's my favourite animal.
So it's the Australian tractor.
Yeah.
That's kind of cool.
But way cuter than a tractor.
Yeah, with
Way
really
cuter.
big ears.
Yeah.
Oh, I
Yeah.
love bilbies, and they taste delicious as well.
Oh,
Only in chocolate.
The chocolate
Only in chocolate. Okay.
You got too far there.
I do want to go straight to this golf course story too, because it is a great one. It was one of your recent posts on LinkedIn, and I just loved the species that have been planted there. Tell us about what's been going on.
So the Royal Golf Club Sydney in the eastern suburbs, it's just undergone a huge renovation. So they've renovated their entire golf green, and they made a decision to bring back in landscape that is completely native species. So they have focused on species that are not just native, but are native to the eastern suburbs. There's a particular, what we call an ecological community. It's essentially just a group of plants that is threatened, that's specific to the eastern suburbs of Sydney, very aptly called the eastern suburbs Banksia scrub. And the golf course is now planting all of the species that make up the eastern suburbs Banksia scrub along their fairways, which is really, really cool. It provides habitat for our local species. So in the eastern suburbs, we have the threatened grey-headed fox, and so it's now providing habitat for the grey-headed fox, and it also provides important wildlife corridors for a lot of birds.
You should say the one that does this, not
the one that does this, yes. And it provides a wildlife corridor for a lot of important mammal and bird and insect species in the eastern suburbs, which is really, really cool. But the business case here for golf clubs is that when you plant native species, particularly Australian native species, you have huge cost benefits in that you save on the amount of water you have to put on the golf course to grow these plants. You also have huge cost savings on lawn maintenance, so you don't have to use as much fertilizer or mow as much because these plants are very resilient in the environment and they look really, really pretty. The big up here is it's providing an uplift to that whole ecosystem in its eastern suburbs. Golf courses are huge areas of land, and it's the easiest way we can regenerate our ecosystems and create more healthy habitats.
And I just love some of the, if you ever go walking through the headlands around the eastern suburbs, some of the native species like the epicurus, but of course the angophoras as well, those beautiful, curly, twisty Sydney, we sometimes call them Sydney red gums.
Yeah.
They are just the most beautiful plants, great flowers, and of course the bird life comes along too. And I think one of the best parts about walking along a golf course is not so much the game, it's actually seeing nature all around you, and when they fly over, it's just the best.
And if you are playing golf and you do see birds, please upload them to an app like iNaturalist because it helps us know what's there and what's coming back.
Oh, okay, cool.
That's a good segue into my next question, which is going back to your past as like a conservationist scientist. The science community, like the image that we have of them is that they're at the forefront of technology, but often the adoption of technology is quite outdated. So how do you as a founder like address that gap in your customer?
It's a really good question. Luckily, our customers aren't scientists, so we don't have that problem in the academic community. But there is a gap between, innovation and adoption. And I saw this in my academic career in that it's a publish or perish life cycle. So as a scientist, you have to publish and you have to get findings really, really quickly, and you're limited in resources and funding. And therefore, you don't get to really play with all of these cool and innovative technologies that are coming through. We call it conservation technology. So you can now use a lot of cameras to track species in the wild. You can use bioacoustics to understand what bird species are calling, or even frog species are calling in certain areas, which is really, really exciting. At Zylo Systems, our main customers are large enterprises. So we mostly work in the property development space. We also work with large infrastructure development companies and energy companies. This is a very new technology that we're dealing with, and a lot of the technology that underpins Zylo Systems is data and artificial intelligence. But we don't lead with that story. We don't tell our customers what technology we're using. We tell them how we're going to make their lives easier and how we're going to not only improve their bottom line, but also improve their sustainability credentials. A key part of our technology is not just providing our users with information that they need to make decisions, it's actually translating that into real human language. So we've got some generative AI models that say, okay, these are the species that we found in your areas of operation. These are the types of ecosystems. And then our generative AI model puts it into a report for them and say, because a grey-headed flying fox was located on your golf club, you need to plant XYZ species in these particular areas to make sure that ecosystem is healthy. So it's taking it that one step further. And I think that's really helped us bridge that technology innovation adoption gap with our customers.
I'm going to take a sideways turn here. I think when Xylo was born, it was a COVID baby back in 2021. And, so you've been at the grind for about 4 years now. I know about halfway through that period, you started to really focus on your health. And I want to talk to you a little bit about that because you had your own realizations as a founder of what it meant to do what you had to do.
I came to the realization that as a founder, I am the biggest, myself and my co-founder, we're the biggest assets to our company, but we're also the biggest risks. If our health isn't in check, then we're not going to thrive as a company. And I started to realize that there were a lot of day-to-day things I was doing in my life that were leading to high levels of anxiety. And as a founder, you already are predisposed to high levels of anxiety. You're dealing with a lot of stress all the time. And because in some instances I was traveling a lot, I probably wasn't eating as well as I could have been. I was definitely drinking way more than I should have. Over the last 12 months, I've really taken a focus on myself, what I'm putting into my body, what I'm drinking. I've cut down alcohol a lot so I can bring those anxiety levels down so I can perform better in my business day to day. And I've seen a huge uplift in my mental clarity. That mental fog has gone away, and it's really helped me to push through some particularly challenging times in the last 12 months. We know that it's not a great market out there for startups at the moment, and particularly for female founders. So it's helped me be more resilient in these times that you need to be resilient in.
And how did you bring that discipline to yourself? Because we often get into the habit of going, I'm really busy right now. I don't have time for myself. I've got to focus on this. I've got to get this report out. I've got to answer to my investors. Rather than giving yourself permission to say, okay, I'm going to go to the gym for half an hour, or I'm going to walk the dog, or all those moments, or gardening.
It really came to a point where I was feeling very burnt out. And I think a lot of people get to this point before they start on that upward trajectory. It's that classic old saying, you kind of have to hit rock bottom. Not saying that I hit full rock bottom, but there was one particular overseas trip I went on for business. I flew over to LA. I was on my way through to another country for the UN Biodiversity Conference. And I landed in LA and I got incredibly sick. And I sat in an LA hotel room for 48 hours because I couldn't do anything else. And then I flew straight back home. And it was very clear that my body wasn't coping. And off the back of that, I had to take about 3 weeks off my startup. It wasn't just that I was physically ill. My mental capacity, my mental health was really in the drain. And I thought, if I have to take 3 weeks off my business, if I'm not addressing this now, then I'm not being there for my team. I'm not building the business that I know needs to change the world, and I'm not doing the best by my investors. So something's got to change here.
So have you put in place some boundaries, some non-negotiables that you absolutely won't break?
We try to be very strict, and this is something Jada, my co-founder, and I have implemented since the beginning of Zylo Systems, and it's something that we've had to focus on as we've grown as a company and as a team, is we've always described ourselves as like the anti-hustle culture. We are very strict about our working hours. We provide very huge flexibility to our entire team, but my working hours are 9 to 5, and wherever possible, I will maintain that as much as possible. And we absolutely, under no circumstances, work on the weekends. It's the only way I can truly switch off, and I think that has been one of the best barriers I put in place to ensure that I have work time and I have Camille time, because as a founder that can blur very, very quickly, and that's what I found out when I was getting to that burnout phase and my mental clarity was just going downhill. So if I have clear boundaries around when I'm working and when I'm not working, it helps a lot.
And what's your favourite thing to do during Camille time?
I love walking my dogs. I've got 2 spoodles. Their names are Puffy and Flora. And I take them for walks, and I live in Bondi, so we go down to the beach and walk along the headlands. And I'm a big birdie as well, so I'll often take them for a walk, and I'll drive my husband mad because the whole way I'm taking pictures of birds and uploading them to iNaturalist. Being out in nature is my favourite thing to do.
Culturally, what's the impact in terms of the example you've set been on the team? I mean, because everyone thinks I've got to be coming in early and impressing the boss and staying late, and that's meant to be that hustle idea. You've inverted it. How's that impacted on everyone? We
have definitely built a quality over quantity mindset, and it's enabled our team to be really flexible. We've got team members that have children, and we allow them flexibility throughout the week to manage childcare and get their work done, because they don't feel like they need to, be in the office 9 to 5 and being present for us. They can work around their lives, and we actually get really, really good work out of everyone, which is amazing. That flexibility has been really, really important. Culturally as well, beyond that flexibility is we are a for-purpose company that is focused on nature. Nature is in absolutely everything that we do. It's one of our shareholders. It's what we're building, why we're doing what we're doing is to improve nature. So culturally, every single person on our team, we screen to make sure that they've got that same mission to regenerating nature, but we embed that in what we do at Zylo Systems. So we go off and we do quarterly nature hikes. We take the whole team out hiking every quarter, which is one of my favorite days. It's important because...
Can we come?
Yeah, absolutely. Come along.
It's giving you're going to have fun and you're going to like it.
Yes. One day we're going to hire someone that doesn't like hiking, and that's okay, because we are a company that is open to everyone's needs.
They can go on an e-scooter.
But it is one of my favorite days, because not only you're out in nature, you're connecting as a team, and I don't think you can really... connect and build on your relationship with your team members like you can out in a hike and in nature. And it's one of the most special things that we've done as a company.
The only problem with taking me is every time I get caught in something I'll spot on a tree or something amongst the grasses, I am the last person. I have got lost, not lost, but just say the party's moved on and I'm still sort of 500 metres behind them, kind of looking up or looking that way. And so as long as you're prepared to sort of wait for me to catch up at the end, I'd love that, because I just think it's the best.
I think you'd fit right in. That's the rest of our team, taking pictures and wondering what's that rustling in the bush over there.
Yep.
What could be
a red belly black. Great.
Yeah. What is a 2-hour hike often turns into a 4-hour hike.
Last question, because I do want to ask this. Any tips for people to do conservation at home?
So many tips for people to do conservation at home. The first one you can do if you have a lawn, or if you don't have a lawn, you can do this on a balcony, is to plant native species. It's the absolute easiest thing we as Australians can do. And like I mentioned with the golf course, it's going to save you at home, because you're not going to have to spend time watering those plants. They are going to thrive, and they're going to bring in really cool wildlife that you'll get to watch out your window, which is really, really lovely. If you're city-based and you can't do as much of that regeneration action at home, you can support conservation not-for-profits, or even get involved with your local land care groups and go out and do planting. If you're based here in Sydney, there's lots of cool volunteer projects at Centennial Park where you can go and count bats, and you can go and do black cockatoo counts. I was actually there this morning and I saw a flock of about 100 black cockatoos, which was really, really cool.
And I love their cry, because it's so plaintive as well.
You can hear
Just
them coming before you see them.
Yeah.
You can plant native species in your garden. If you can't do that, you can volunteer with your local conservation groups. And then the final tip is, if you can't do either of those things, you can, and if you have the means to, you can donate to conservation not-for-profits that are funneling money into a lot of that on-the-ground regeneration work that needs to be done across our whole country.
Camille, I do want to ask you about being a Kamilaroi woman and that connection with land. What does it bring to what you're doing, that sensibility?
It's such an extension. Zylo Systems, in the way in which we've built it, is an extension of how I care for country as a Kamilaroi woman. A bit of family history on us and our Indigenous connection. My mum found out we had strong Kamilaroi connections later on in life, and so it's a very common story that I don't think is very well known, that a lot of our Indigenous people here in this country don't actually have a strong connection back to their mob. And while we know where we came from, we don't have those strong connections back to our specific mob. So Zylo Systems, for me, is a way in which I can care for country without actually being on country and knowing, Indigenous knowledge and our song lines about what is happening on that land. So it's an extension of my First Nations heritage, and it's something that I'm very, very proud to be doing. There's still a lot of work that me and my family are doing to find out, exactly who our connections are there. But yeah, it's so important to me, and in the long run, there's a couple of effects that this is happening as we can ultimately provide the technology that we have to First Nations rangers to help them improve their work they're doing on country. But myself as a founder, putting myself out there as a First Nations founder helps inspire the next generation. There are not that many First Nations founders, not that many First Nations tech founders here in this country. And I'm really trying to be present to show young Indigenous women that this is a career path for them too, that they can do this and they can achieve this.
Well, staying with women, the experience as a woman founder, we know the environment's tough at the moment. Do you get a sense that the disparity is there because of your gender, or is it just broadly tough, full stop, end of story? Let it rip.
I think the data shows us that there is a disparity there. And
you are such a data scientist, aren't you?
I am such a data scientist. The numbers speak for themselves, and I can sit here and I can tell you my personal stories, but my personal stories are my personal stories, but we need to look at what's happening at that landscape level, and we know that the numbers are not good when it comes to female founders. Myself personally, how I've seen this play out is I've heard through the grapevine from different investors that I've pitched to. It's made its way back to me that investors haven't invested in us because they thought we got some of our really big customers, international customers, as a fluke, which I was just absolutely shocked when I heard that. I've heard from other female founders working with certain investors that they don't believe that there is gender bias here in this country. That's just a barrier that we as female founders are putting on themselves.
I have to interrupt for just a second. I'm trying to figure out how you rationalise a major customer being a fluke, because the implication of that is that they're shithouse and don't know what they're doing. So it's kind of like, what the fuck?
I would say I'm surprised that came around, but I'm not surprised, because that's the sad reality of being a female founder in this country, is that the data again backs it up, is that when women say things and when they pitch and when they say, these are the revenue figures, these are the types of customers we're getting in, this is what we can achieve, we're just not believed.
So the blokes do it through sheer genius, and women get lucky.
And the blokes also commit a lot of fraud and get away with that too.
Allegedly.
Whereas we don't see many women founders in the news for fraud.
Anyway, we probably should wrap, and you can tell us off camera who that was, because I wanna keep that in my black book. I can tell you now, but Camille, thank you so much for joining us from Zylo Systems.
Thank you very much for having me.
We'll be right back with 10X.
Welcome to our 10X segment, and welcome to Jenny Rudd, the founder of Dispute Buddy.
Yay!
I'm going to ask you to intro Dispute Buddy, and I'm going to tack my first question for 10X onto the end of it, which is, what's the most memorable dispute you've ever been in?
Oh, that's a really easy question to answer. So kia ora, ko Jenny Rudd toku ingoa. My name's Jenny Rudd. That's Te Reo Māori from Aotearoa, New Zealand, where I live. Dispute Buddy. So we find and extract all the texts and emails and messages that you need to help build your legal case when you're in a legal dispute without you having to look for a single painful one, because that's a really big emotional toll. And the most painful dispute that I've ever been in is that in 2020 I had to go and make an emergency application to family court to make my children safe. And so I had to go through this really painful situation of my lawyer saying, hey, can you send me all the texts and emails that are relevant to this case? And I was like, sure, like how? What, have you got like a magic platform that you're going to suck it all in on? And that was not the case. And so I kind of had to scroll through and screenshot and find
Which, given
everything
the
myself.
circumstance you're in, you don't want to have to do that anyway, because it brings back a lot of unpleasant memories.
Yeah, so it's really re-traumatizing. And so the more that we can get people to go into disputes in a calm, measured way, and they can resolve them much quicker.
I was just wondering, if you're a VC, it might be a really good product to use as well. If you've got any questions. Listen, I'm going to go to the most important thing. You've been around the world because your heritage is English via Aotearoa and then across here. Kia ora, Jenny. Great to have you. How did that circle happen?
Oh, goodness. Well, so my father was a fighter jet pilot in the Royal Air Force, and my mother was a teacher. So all of my young life, we just moved around the world all the time when I was young. And I went to boarding school from when I was very young, 8 or 9, something like that. And so I'd never really lived in the UK that much. I did it through boarding school. And then I moved to Aotearoa, New Zealand about 18 years ago with my ex-husband. And and then the way I came to Australia was I applied to Techstars, the accelerator, and I was really lucky enough to get in. And so I came last year for about 4 months. But prior to that, I was the head of product for Workzilla, which is a legal tech company in Sydney, run by Danny King. So it's run by, the 3 co-founders are called Danny, Dan and Dave. Danny King's a lawyer. She's actually on my cap table as well. But she runs Danny King Legal, and her partner Dan, and the CTO Dave Norris. And so I worked for them for a while as well. But then I came here for Techstars.
Please tell me that Norris has a silent K, so they're all DKs.
They're not all DKs, but they're absolutely lovely. Yeah, so I worked for them for a bit and ran product for them and got them sort of set up operationally, because I've got a background in, I'd bought and sold a business before in New Zealand with my husband.
You've really done it all.
I have done quite a lot, actually. My first job was, I was the first female first female sports spread betting trader in the city in London as well,
my gosh.
1999. Yeah.
Wow.
Back when it was like hand movements, a lot of shouting and a lot of Wolf of Wall Street style shenanigans, and before high volume trading and stuff, yeah.
Which job has been the most fun?
In my life?
Yeah.
Probably do you know what? All my life has been fun. Everything that I've ever done feels like a lot of fun. Maybe apart from working at Bourne Salads. Sorry, Bourne Salads. That was my first overnight job in a factory, chopping up lettuce and putting it in bags.
Not fun.
Less than fun. Yeah.
That's a great life to live then.
Yeah, I'm really lucky. Everything that I've ever done, I've loved.
All right, important question. What's the most annoying thing about lawyers?
Where to start?
Most annoying thing? No, that's not fair. I mean, lawyers are just people, right? We're all just people. Some of us are annoying, some of us aren't. I think probably one of the hardest things for lawyers, when I look at it through the lens of like Dispute Buddy, I've done a lot of research around. I interviewed like hundreds of people who've been through disputes and lawyers, and I even got a couple of judges on board to interview as well with customer discovery. And I discovered this real tension between how the business model of law works, which is it incentivizes escalation, right? Because they're paid hourly, and the only way that you can keep getting more billable hours is to keep it escalating. And it's and so that is shrouded in, I want the best for my client. I need to make sure I get the best for my client. But if we know, like if you speak to children, like let's say you two had an argument, I'm sure you'd never disagree, but let's say if you both had an argument, and if I was advising Kayla and I was like, just fucking get everything that you need. Don't worry about Simon. No. I reckon you could get more. No. Stand your ground. And if Simon had an advocate saying the same thing to him, could be me, then you would just be at it for ages.
My Rottweiler.
We would never advocate that as like a kind of good outcome for an argument. But so that's how kind of lawyers are incentivized to work. But I think that that's going to change. I've definitely seen a huge number of lawyers that I've interviewed who say things like, oh my gosh, I love Dispute Buddy because I hate the fact that I'm charging my clients to kind of do this administrative work of gathering all of their screenshots and then printing them out and putting them in on a table and feeding them back into a scanner. So they are really motivated to do good work. The system doesn't incentivize it, but the system's changing. AI.
Have you watched Fisk by any chance?
No.
Oh my God, you should watch it. It's
What is it?
Australian comedy, but it's set in a wills and estate lawyer's office.
Oh.
Yeah.
It's hilarious.
Oh my gosh, I'll watch it after I finish
Kitty
watching
Flanagan.
Gogglebox tonight.
Yeah, it's so funny. Like you will binge it.
Marty
okay.
Shergold in a rare moment where the public liked him.
Yeah, it's honestly really good.
I'll put it in my back pocket.
To go off the back of that, anything you're reading, watching, or listening to that you'd like to recommend?
I just read the most beautiful book called Phosphorescence by Julia Baird.
Yes.
Is that well known in Australia, that book?
Well, you love swimming at Manly, don't you?
I love it.
That's where Julia's based and where she swims, yeah.
Right. So I learned that because my beautiful cousin, Sarah Herriot, who lives north of Sydney in Barowra, we went to boarding school together when we were young. Her dad was a navigator and in some of the same squadrons as my dad was. And that's how they all met, and we were all related. But amazingly, I moved to Aotearoa, Sarah moved to Sydney, and now that I'm coming back and forth to Sydney a lot for work, I see a lot of Sarah, and she is a permaculture. She loves permaculture. She loves nature. She hangs out at Sustainability Barowra. And she said to me a while ago, because I often talk about this deep, like thrumming joy of having my head underneath the water and looking at all the beautiful wildlife in Manly. And I love like climbing hills and looking around and looking at the ocean. I love being in the ocean. So she said, you have to read this book. It's about the kind of awe and the awe of nature. And yeah, she swims a lot. I have to keep a lookout for her, actually.
Well, it sounds like you need to introduce Sarah to Camille.
Yes.
And you need to join us on the nature walk as well. I'm going to get out to nature in New Zealand. Batches. It's a very Kiwi thing. Explain them to our listeners and viewers who haven't heard of it before and probably called it bachs at that point in time.
Probably.
But what's the most important thing to have in a batch?
A batch in New Zealand is a second home that's usually a bit ramshackle, and it's on the beach and it's full of all of the cutlery and furniture and everything that you don't want in your real home, and they chuck it all in there. And so Kiwis, what they do is they go on holiday to the batch like every year for summer, and they go and camp there the whole kind of summer, and they have loads of people like on the lawn and like sardine in the garage, like bunk beds in garages is a standard thing in batches in New Zealand, and it's everywhere, and it's this really wonderful way of enjoying whānau family in New Zealand. So I love it. I've never had a batch. I'm way too itchy feet. The last thing I want to do is have another place where I just want to be there all the time. I'd rather just go in loads of different places. That's the other good thing about Airbnb in New Zealand. You can Airbnb all the batches because people put them all on Airbnb because they're not in them that much. So you can go and rent and stay in cool little places. And they're always full of weird shit that they've just like biffed out of their own home, yeah.
I always feel like it's a caravan without the wheels.
Pretty much.
The Kiwi batch.
Yeah, I love it. And they're in these like insanely beautiful places, yeah.
I want to go back to the dispute theme.
Yeah, let's.
So if you're in a dispute, what is some good tips for having the confidence to stand your ground?
I think that, okay, so if we just sort of take our heads out of legal disputes, but any kind of dispute or disagreement, I think one of the most important things is to go, what is the actual, when you look ahead at a week, a day or a week or a month or a year, how do you want to be with this person? Like, do you want to be friends with them? Do they fit with your values? Are you sure that you've done everything that you can to kind of really make sure that you've seen their point of view or that you're living inside your values as well? And just think, you know, if I really want to get on well with this person, how do I go to them and say, hey, can I repeat back to you, what is it? What is it? Do you think that this is, if I say this, does this sound like what I've done? And I think often if you can just acknowledge to someone what it is that you've done or how they might be feeling, they don't necessarily need resolution. They want to be heard. And it's healthy for you to realise when you've been a dick. I mean, as you can hear, I've probably had to do this quite a lot in my life. But I think looking at the outcome and not having your ego tied to how you get there, be kind. Like,
Good
just
advice.
see things from someone else's point of view.
Speaking of being a dick, I wanted to
Simon.
ask you...
Over to you.
Look,
said that
a couple of months ago, Epic Angels, the world's largest all-female investment collective...
Well, I'd love it. I think they'd love it you said the words. I think it's
backed
Apex.
Dispute Buddy. You know, so again, it's women looking after women. They get it. They see it.
Hang on. They're not looking after women. They are making a truckload of money out of an underrepresented market and a massive missed opportunity. They're not looking after anyone.
Bang on. Right. I stand corrected, but I
were.
think it's important. Yeah. What would you say to VCs about investing in women founders?
So here's the so actually in Aotearoa, New Zealand, I run the gender investment gap. So me and my friend Dame Teresa Gatton, we saw this. We were like, where's all the women in all these rooms pitching, you know, for capital and stuff? There aren't enough. So we have got the first and only set of data in New Zealand that looks at how much venture capital is actually deployed to women and other genders in New Zealand. I think we've got the biggest set in the world. We've got 70% of our whole VC industry giving us their data. Anyway, what would I say to VCs? Well, first of all, it's not for me to convince someone of whether data is correct or not. But I think if you kind of like, you can look in at this data from all different angles. But I think the bottom line is if we know that when little tiny children are tiny in their mum's tummies, when they come out, then it's very likely that they're all going to have lots of very simple, there's the characteristics like tenacity and grit and determination. They're not really gendered, they're just sort of scattered amongst the people that are born. So then when you get a lot older, if you look at the amount of venture capital that's deployed, women-only founded businesses, which is what mine are, they're literally shut out of 93 cents in every dollar. So 93 cents of every dollar is not available to that huge group of founders, which is massive. It just tells you that there's just so much opportunity there. On top of that, if you look at the makeup of a business, let's say banks or insurance companies or car companies, they're largely made up of boards of men with men ownership and driving them. So that says to you that there is no way that they can be truly meeting the needs of half of their customer base, which says that there's a massive market opportunity to sell something to that half of that customer base that they're missing. Women would not build the same cars as men. Women wouldn't build the same insurance products. It's not better or worse. It's just that they would serve that customer base. So the only people really well placed to serve that customer base are the people who they are, who understand how they relate to the world. So just fucking invest in them. It's just so obvious. It's like massive market opportunity. Harvard Business Review said, I think it was 10 years ago, they said that women as a market opportunity is bigger than India and China combined. And I don't think that's still out of date, that quote, because it still hasn't been realised yet. Eventually, all women founders will be invested in and they'll grow. But if you haven't invested early, you're going to miss out on those massive upticks.
You're telling me that raving left woke Harvard Business Review had that view of investing in women?
Sounds like it. If that's how you want to describe it, I'm here for it.
I think it was like a TikTok or something, where they were saying that the only way that their boomer parents finally changed their opinion and believed that climate change was real was because they were like, oh, the insurance companies believe it's real and they won't do anything unless it's going to make them money. So it must be real. And like, that's how the parents were like, okay, maybe there is something to this. So
I don't know. I think older people and younger people get a hard rap. And from everything I've seen, people are just people. My dad always used to say something funny. He goes, oh, well, back then we didn't worry about plastic bags. The environment wasn't invented, darling. So, it's quite funny. My dad's awesome. He's awesome. Yeah.
What kind of planes did he fly?
He flew Tornadoes and Buccaneers. And then when he left, he sold Eurofighter to governments around the world.
Cool.
Yeah.
What a cool
He's
dad.
ace. My dad is amazing. He is such a legend. My mum and dad live 5 minutes from me now. They came out during COVID for a 6-week holiday and they never left. And they just sold their house from here and bought a house here. I'm delighted. It's like, so I've got my 5 kids, my gorgeous husband, Matt Tomlinson, my beautiful mum and dad. We all live kind of all around each other. It's amazing.
That wasn't a real question. So number 19.
Does it count? Kind of the opposite of the doom and gloom. What is a fact or something that makes you hopeful for the future?
A fact or something that makes me hopeful for the future. I just think it's really easy to feel happy. It's really, really easy to find things to be happy about. And the more that I see young people, like I'm 50, and so most of my founder mates are considerably younger than me. And I am so heartened by the joy and the excitement that they get from their companies and how much innovation and interest and curiosity they have in the world. I'm surrounded by it all the time, so I don't really think very doom and gloomy.
50, huh? I love having kids on this show. You talked about how peripatetic you are. So
I don't know what that word means.
Well, you like to get out and about. You like to sort of travel the world. So where is it that you haven't been that you want to go and why?
I'd really like to go to India. I hear so many mixed reviews.
Do it.
I hear so many mixed reviews of like people either really find it enlightening and beautiful and some people find it very difficult because of the kind of system of how humans live alongside each other. I find it very difficult living in New Zealand, the homogeneousness of us all as a people and in Australia as well. And I've been kind of I've been there for a long, long time and dealing with lots of things with my children and their dad and my husband. And you probably know that 5 kids are quite expensive. So we're not awash with cash to go travelling, but I adore my husband and we can't wait to go and travel the world and see things when we finished bringing up the first tranche of our kids.
I've been lucky enough to go to India a few times. The last time we took our kids, who I think were probably about 10 and 12 at the time, or maybe a little bit younger. It's a country I describe as somewhere that will teach you about the best parts of your personality and the worst parts of your personality. It can be challenging, but it is brilliant, it's beautiful, it's an extraordinary place. I hope you have a great time. Get over there.
Yeah. Well, when I was young, we lived all over the world. We lived in Malaysia. We lived in all sorts of different places. And I really loved that. And I learned a lot of languages when I was young. I speak French and German and Spanish and learned a lot of Latin. And now I'm learning Te Reo Māori. And I think that one of the issues that we have in New Zealand and Australia is not enough people speak 2 languages because if you speak another language, you have got such a very quick understanding of how everybody sees the world so differently through the lens of their language and the words that they use, and helps you much more empathic and thoughtful that yours isn't the only way, really.
I think it's tēnā koe, is that right? Thank you.
Tēnā koe.
Tēnā koe.
Tēnā koe,
Yes.
e hoa. Yeah, thanks, friend.
Thank you so much for joining us, Jenny Rudd from Dispute Buddy.
Yay! And can I just say that we're launching this week. I'm here for the Legal Tech Fest on Wednesday, where I'm speaking about AI for good, how Dispute Buddy's using AI for good, on the Law Tech Hub chaired by Courtney Blackman, the CEO, Courtney Blackman, under Lance and Rogers, and they've asked me to come and speak about AI for good. And so we are there looking for 5 lawyers that want to come and be our first pilot customers for Dispute Buddy. And you know what? Awesome. I was on the plane the other day, and this guy leant over and said, "Excuse me, is this your company?" And he had my Dispute Buddy on his phone. And I was like, "Oh my God, it was such a joy." And I said, "Yes." I said, "It is my company." And he said, "I've seen this for a while. I love it." He said, "I'm a family lawyer." And I said, "Do you have to gather texts much?" He said, "I do it all the time and I hate it." And I was like, ta-da! This is the golden thing that you don't want to hear.
So 1 down, 4 to go.
That's right.
Yeah, well done. Thanks, Jen. Well, are you off to Adelaide this weekend for Gather Round? All the footy's on down there?
I'm not a footy person. I thought we've covered this before.
Yeah, but I'm not giving up. I am persevering. It's going to happen one of these days. Kayla, thank you. Have a great weekend. I do want to say this show has been Stripe Media Production, produced and edited by the fabulous Matt Jackson, a man who can fix anything, do anything, and puts together a cracking show every week. Thanks also to Ella Walsh, to James Vass, and to Vanta for their support. Subscribe to the show on Apple, Spotify, and of course watch on YouTube. Don't forget to read startupdaily.net for all our ANZ tech news. It's free. See you next week.
Bye.
Bye.